Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us on today's webinar, Moving from Reactive to Proactive Services, 6 Expert Tips, brought to you by Technology Services Industry Association and sponsored by ServiceMax. My name is Inga Triago, your moderator for today. Before we get started, we just have a few housekeeping items. Audio is routed through your computer speakers. If you encounter audio quality or technical issues, let us know right away via the questions panel. You may access full screen view via the toggle button located at the top right area of the console. We encourage you to ask questions at any time via the questions panel. If you don't get to your question today, we will follow up with you via email. And finally, a link to the recorded version of today's webinar and the PDF of the presentation will be sent out in the next 24 hours via email. Once again, thank you for joining us today. I would now like to introduce our presenters today, John Ragsdale, VP Research, Technology, and Social for TSIA, and Jeremy Frank, Director of Content Marketing for ServiceMax. We do have a lot of exciting material to share in the next 30 minutes, so let's go ahead and get started by turning things over to our first presenter. John, over to you.
Thanks, Inga. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. We had a huge response to our topic today, and very happy to be here to talk about some of the hot trends around proactive support. Moving from reactive to proactive has been a pretty interesting topic on the technical support side, but today we're going to look at the field support organizations and how proactive support is really changing the game for field service today. So I wanted to open with a little discussion on exactly what proactive means, or at least what I mean when I talk about proactive. And there are three main buckets of proactive support, specifically in regard to field service. The first is preventative maintenance, and these are typically a premier program or an upsell program that allows the field tech to go on site for regularly scheduled visits to your home or your office, check out the equipment, run tests, repair or replace any parts that are getting near their end of life. And ideally, the field tech is going to catch small problems on these preventative maintenance visits and prevent them from becoming large problems and hopefully avoid downtime. Proactive monitoring is a very hot space today. This is machine-to-machine communication, allowing your support organization to link into the customer's remote equipment, and you can have rule systems that detect errors, notify people to take action if something bad happens, and hopefully you can fix problems before customers even know that they happen. And finally, remote support. We're very used to remote support in technical support operations. This is screen sharing or remote control of a remote computer or piece of equipment. And we're starting to see this used much more in field service as well. The field tech's got a lot of familiarity with the customer equipment and their environment. And sometimes, even though tech support has tried to fix the problem, we're finding that the field tech is able to do a remote control session and a phone call to the customer, and sometimes they can fix it. And so that is a look at the three main types of proactive support. And why this is such a big topic is because it's truly a win-win scenario for both the customer and the organization. On the customer side, we're seeing that customers that are investing in these proactive services are having fewer problems, more uptime, overall a better customer experience, and that means higher satisfaction scores, higher loyalty scores, which means all of your bonuses get to pay out a little bit more. And also, even though it's a win on the customer side, it's also a win on the field support side. Definitely, if we can eliminate some of these field service visits, I'm sure many of you have heard the TSIA factoid that a field service visit fully burdened costs $1,010. So there's a lot of money being spent to roll these trucks. And if we can use proactive support to eliminate even a small percentage of these issues, we can really boost productivity. And also higher service revenue. I'm going to talk about this a lot today. We know that customers will pay more for better service. I've got some data here showing from our field service benchmark that almost a third, 31% of high-tech companies' customers are in the Premier Support program. And Premier Support typically includes some kind of proactive support, whether it's a preventative maintenance or remote monitoring. But we definitely want to see that customers are moving into these Premier Support programs, not only to receive better service, but obviously to generate some additional services revenue. So how are we doing in actually avoiding some on-site repair situations? And I have some data here from the Field Service Benchmark that shows how companies are doing. And we have the industry averages showing various approaches to remote support or proactive support. And we can see that a pretty significant portion, 14%, field service visits are avoided because the field tech calls the customer, often using that remote support capability, and is able to solve the problem before they go on site. But look at these PaceSetter numbers. Now, these are for about 25% of companies who have heavily invested in proactive technology and processes, and you can see some pretty dramatic results here of on-site avoidance due to various remote proactive approaches. So there is some real money to be saved here and some real customer experiences to be impacted. So absolutely, I would recommend that you take these numbers to heart. And if you have not yet invested in various proactive approaches for your field service team, 2015 is really the time. So this is all part, in my view, of the really big pivot that we're seeing to field support organizations becoming much more strategic. They're not just about break fix anymore. They're not just showing up to clean up other people's problems. This on-site presence allows the field tech to really interact with the customer, to understand how they're using their technology, what sort of value they're getting out of your products, and they can really help you boost that adoption and consumption. So that is a core piece of TSIA's B4B message, is consumption monitoring. And the field tech really has a unique opportunity because they're in your home or your office. They can make a big difference on how we utilize the technology. But also from a revenue standpoint, because this field tech isn't just a nameless, faceless person on the phone, you have a personal relationship with them. And we hear that many times the field techs have a trusted advisor status with their customers. They've gotten to know them. They really trust their advice. And that means that you have a fantastic opportunity for upsell, cross-sell. While they're on site, they can talk to them about preventative maintenance programs, remote monitoring programs, what it would mean if they were to upgrade to a Premier Support program, maybe even offer them some training classes, attend an upcoming conference, etc. So we have a really great opportunity here for the field tech to be able to introduce expand selling into their role, and we're starting to see more companies now training field techs on upsell, cross-sell, and a small percentage are even giving the field techs some sort of selling goal and commission status. So they're carrying a quota, and it's becoming a much bigger part of their job. So we promised that as part of our webinar today, we were going to give you 6 expert tips to help you move from reactive to proactive. And I'm going to kick off that list at the number 6 item, which is leveraging your field techs for expand selling. So if you're not doing this today, you can definitely introduce some training on how to introduce offers and extend that offer with the mobile capabilities that a lot of you are introducing for your field team. And our guest speaker today from ServiceMax, they have some very cool mobile capabilities. Those mobile capabilities can help you extend that offer. They can capture a signature to close the deal. You can even do a credit card swipe if you have the right device. So our field service techs today need to be trained and mobile enabled to do this expand selling, and I think you're going to find that it actually fits in with their roles as trusted advisors very well. So for the rest of our tips on moving from reactive to proactive, I'd like to turn things over to our guest speaker today, Jeremy Frank, Director of Content Marketing for ServiceMax. Jeremy, take it away.
All right. Thank you, John, and thank you, Inga, and thanks everyone for joining today. I'm really excited to present this topic alongside John. So, like John said, I am with a company called ServiceMax. And just very briefly, a little bit about ServiceMax. We are an end-to-end cloud-based field service solution. And when I say end-to-end, I mean our software supports the entire field service process from beginning to end, including all the parts that you see here on this slide: contract scheduling. We have social collaboration capabilities. And we actually were just announced as a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for Field Service this year. And, you know, a very big part of what John was just talking about, and a very big part of our solution are our mobile capabilities. We have native applications that run on iPhone, iPad, and on Android devices, which we just announced recently. And we like to call our brand of mobile app Field Ready Mobile. And what that means is that our apps are built for technicians in the field, which is different than, you know, a consumer app. These guys are in tight crawl spaces. They're often without connectivity, and we build everything for our mobile devices, knowing that technicians are a very unique user of mobile devices. So that's just a little bit about ServiceMax, and now we can get into a little bit more of the content here. So I want to just start with what does proactive really mean? And John touched on this a little bit, but I think when we hear proactive in the service industry, we think of solving customer issues before the customer necessarily needs to call in, or before the customer may even know there's an issue. And that's absolutely a huge part of proactive service. But proactive services also goes beyond just fixing, as John mentioned, which I'll talk about a little bit. It's also something where, for it to actually come to fruition, technicians need to be empowered to provide this kind of service, which I'll also touch on as well. And then finally, it's something that actually needs to be enabled. There's a lot of things that go into it. It's not something that happens overnight, obviously. There's technology, there's process, there's training. So I'll touch on a little bit of that as well. And like John said, we're counting down here to have a little bit of suspense. So he started with number 6. And so number 5, my first tip, is about giving technicians autonomy. So, you know, technicians are out in the field, they're on their own. And for some companies, it can be a little bit daunting to think about giving technicians freedom. But at least some level of freedom needs to be given to technicians in order for proactive service to happen. These are the only people that are face-to-face with your customers every day. They're the ones with the ability to affect a lot of things as they pertain to your relationships with your customers. And so they need to be given the autonomy to be able to take advantage of that. One example I can give you from a customer of ours, Luminex, they're a life sciences company. They have every technician, when they're done with a work order at a customer site, ask the customer, is there anything else Luminex can do for you? And that's not, is there anything else Luminex can fix for you? Is there anything else broken you want me to take a look at? It's, is there anything at all Luminex can do for you? So they're giving the technician the ability to get feedback from the customer, no matter what it is, and empower them to take action on that, which I'll get into in a little bit. So the next tip is to enable collaboration. And like I said, with these Luminex technicians, they're at a customer site. They're probably by themselves. And some sort of collaboration needs to happen to empower these technicians to actually take action. They can't be left on an island. They need to be connected to people in your company. They need to be connected to knowledge, all sorts of resources that can help them solve problems beyond just fixing a machine, the things that they are inherently good at. We think of first-time fix as something that applies to fixing a machine. You go into a customer site and you're able to fix it the first time. Like John said, that avoids extra truck rolls that can be costly. But I think service organizations need to think about the first-time fix as something that goes beyond just fixing machines, fixing any customer request or issue, be it a field service problem, be it a billing problem, something outside of the service organization that the technician on site can take care of. And then another thing to support this idea of the empowered technician, and John touched on this as well, is getting technicians mobile, giving them mobile devices to access information. It's key that they have access to data when they're out in the field, and easy access to data. So we're not talking, rifling through papers in the truck to find, some customer history, or booting up a laptop to, access the VPN to get to your knowledge base. They need simple, easy access to the most real-time data possible. And I'll put this into perspective with a couple of more customer stories. One medical device company that we work with at ServiceMax has actually, their technicians have to actually fly for the most part to all of their work orders. So they're spending a lot of money to get the technicians out, sending them 3 states away to fix something. So when they're out there, they want to take advantage of these technicians being around other customers. They've actually built technology on top of ServiceMax using our data, so that when a technician opens up his iPad and opens up this app they've built, they can see on a map where all the other customers are within proximity to them and where there are open work orders. So they can proactively decide, even if they haven't been assigned a work order, to go to that customer and fix something, or just to go to a customer and check in and see how things are going. And that's kind of the access to data that enables those technicians to be proactive. Another kind of fun example is another big beverage distributor that we work with at ServiceMax. Their technicians are able to assign themselves work orders. They're given flexibility to do that, and they're given access to all that data to choose which ones they want to take. So an interesting story is that we at ServiceMax, everybody at the company, from the finance organization to professional services and marketing, goes on a ride-along with a customer once a year. And one of our people here was on a ride-along with this company, and they were at a work order. They were fixing a soda dispenser, and they were finishing up the work order. And the technician looks on his phone, and he sees that within the last minute or two, a new work order had been logged, literally 3 doors down from where they were. So they finished up the work order, walked 3 doors down, went into the store, and the woman who owned the store was absolutely shocked that she had just hung up the phone 5 minutes before, and there was a technician. I mean, talk about breaking the stereotypes of field service technicians who people, claim to wait around 6 hours for. And so anyway, that was an ability for that technician to be proactive, to go to a customer and absolutely delight them with great proactive service. And that's all enabled by access to data on mobile devices. So number 2 is leveraging the Internet of Things and just data that comes from the field. So I don't want to freak anyone out with the Internet of Things. I know this is a technology that we're hearing a lot about that may not be fully leveraged in a lot of field service organizations, but I think it's the impact of it and impact from data from the field can have a similar impact on field service organizations. So I mean, Internet of Things, if you're not familiar, is the ability for machines to communicate automatically with your service organization. It's the idea of connected devices. And all the things that go along with that, parsing that data to get insights about what's going on with the machine and the impact that can have on the service organization. So, I mean, the ultimate holy grail here is addressing customer issues before they know anything's wrong. So, understanding that there's an issue with a machine, it may not be down yet, but you need to get out there and fix it. But then, just data from the field can also have that impact as well. And that's data that comes from field service technicians that are out in the field seeing these machines and logging data. Insights can be gleaned from that stuff to help inform service and proactive service specifically. If we're talking about selling more to customers, actively seeing trends in machines being fixed or issues that machines are having can inform you whether or not to sell something to a new customer, whether a customer needs a new machine. An important thing here too is taking that data and making it shareable, not just containing it within the service organization. It's not just service that can be proactive, but it can be other organizations within your company as well. I mentioned sales. Sales can proactively go out to a customer and try to sell them something new if there's obviously some issues with their machine. Something like R&D can even be proactive in updating your products, making them easier to fix or making them perform better based on all this data from the field. And like I said, the holy grail of that is these machines sending data automatically to your company that you can just process and get insights from. But even today, there's a really strong capability if you empower your technicians to gather a lot of data from the field and send that back to home base. there's a lot of opportunity to use that data to perform better service and perform proactive service. So that is tip number 2. And then the final tip is moving towards data-driven preventative maintenance. And what does that actually mean? That means taking all this data from the field and putting it towards a preventative maintenance program that ensures zero downtime. Not only does it ensure zero downtime, but it also moves from what we think of preventative maintenance today, which is based on a calendar, basically. We will perform 4 preventative maintenance throughout the year, or we'll, something that's more based on time than actual needs. It actually lets you perform preventive maintenance based on data, knowing that this machine needs preventative maintenance now, or maybe this machine doesn't need a preventative maintenance when you normally would have had one scheduled, saving your company a lot of money on a truck roll. So it really makes that preventative maintenance process a lot more efficient, but it also ensures zero downtime when you absolutely have great data that's informing when to do these preventative maintenances. And GE, I think, right now is kind of the company, at least publicly, that's spearheading this idea of zero downtime and data-driven preventative maintenance. They're referring to it as the industrial internet, and the idea is that there's a lot of data coming from machines, and they're moving towards the ability to be able to process that, to have really efficient preventive maintenance programs, zero downtime, but ultimately the business impact of all of this is that you get to a point in your relationship with a customer, which we at ServiceMax call servitization. It has other names, where you as a company are providing a service, not so much a product and a service contract. So an example of that, which some of you may heard, is let's say a jet engine, for example. A company like GE can provide a jet engine to, say, United Airlines and insure them 10,000 hours of operational time over a certain span of months or a year or whatever. That is the single metric that defines the relationship between the two companies. They are providing a service and a business outcome, and it is GE's responsibility to make sure that number of hours is reached. And they do that with this data-driven preventative maintenance idea. So understanding how the machine is running, if it needs to be fixed, and if there's no downtime, GE wins and the customer wins, and it's sort of this mutual business arrangement that seems to benefit everyone. And that's ultimately, I think, the holy grail for service organizations, service becoming the actual product that companies are providing. So those are my top 5 expert tips. Before we go into questions, I just wanted to share all of my contact information. I'd love to connect with anyone who'd like to discuss any of this more, of course, learn any more about ServiceMax. So please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. And I think from there, I'll turn it back over to Inga, who will run the Q&A.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for a very insightful and interesting presentation. We are moving on to the Q&A portion, and just want to remind everyone, if you have any questions, feel free to enter them into the into the question panel. We do have one question, and that is, how are companies overcoming pushback from field employees on selling to customers?
Well, I can take that one. We used to hear a lot of pushback. It really is kind of a cultural shift, especially for older workers who have been doing their role for a very long time, to suddenly be told that they need to sell as well as service. But a couple of answers there. First, and I seem to talk about this once on every webinar, you have the carrot and the stick. So if you're going to introduce any sort of sales to a support role, you definitely have to make it part of their performance reviews and include some sort of incentives for them to do it. I'm not necessarily saying put them on commission, but if they're able to extend offers and get customers to accept them, that should add up toward their bonus program or make them more available for the bonus pool. Beyond that, the research has shown that once employees are trained on how to extend the offer, which is really the tricky part, how do you get it into the conversation, they find that customers are so receptive to these offers, which are very contextual. I mean, you're only extending an offer that has to do with why you're there on site. We hear companies say that once the field techs hear yes often enough, they stop worrying about selling and just considering it as part of their service role. So it can be a bit of a hump, especially with older workers. We're finding younger workers are much more comfortable extending that offer. But I would say as long as you make that part of a formal program, put it in their performance review, make it a goal for them, typically we see that the behavior can easily become second nature over a few months.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I think John covered most of it. We've definitely seen at our customers, we've definitely seen incentives work well. I think, like John said, it is a cultural thing. I don't think it works at every company, but we have seen incentives implemented quite a bit at our customers, which I think technicians are willing to accept on a varying basis. But there's just kind of a changing role or changing type of person that's becoming a service technician. It's a little bit more of a renaissance man or woman than it used to be, with sort of a variety of skills. And there is a little bit of more of an openness in this new generation to this kind of thing.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. We do have another question. How do we present the value proposition to a customer for ensuring that their data environment is connected and the service can be handled proactively?
Yeah, I'll take a pass at this first, Jeremy. This is something that we deal with a lot from our managed service business. How do we, make companies comfortable with this remote access to their systems? There's several other questions in queue about customers worried about the security aspects of remote access or remote support. And first of all, there needs to be a good understanding of the technology. The proactive support, remote support solutions today, which we've done quite a few webinars on if you want to check our library, they have some pretty heavy-duty security capabilities in them. So the first thing you need to do is make sure you understand what security capabilities are there to help them overcome their concerns. If necessary, you may need to have a briefing with the IT group, who's ever in charge of security, so they understand who will access the content, how it's shared. Typically, it's encoded when it's being sent over the internet, so there's no concerns about information leaking out. But I talked about this in my book and said it was a case of paranoia, and that convenience tends to override paranoia once they find out what amazing savings in time and efficiency there are from doing the remote support. So I would just say don't try to sidestep those security issues. They're very real concerns in some companies. Make sure that you may need to loop in even the vendor for the proactive or remote technology that you're using, who can explain how the security is constructed, but hopefully you can overcome those objections. In most cases, I've heard that companies have come on board once they realize that you care about their security as much as they do.
Thank you, John. And we have time for one last question. Is it more costly to do proactive support? And if so, how do companies overcome those additional costs?
Yeah, I can touch on this one. I mean, I spoke at the end a little bit about preventive maintenance, proactive preventive maintenance, and how getting to the point of doing that where it's actually more efficient. You may even be doing less preventative maintenance visits because you are only performing them when they actually need to be done based on data. Some companies may not be quite set up for that yet. John also talked about the idea of remote support. When you're able to do remote support, you're certainly cutting down on paying for a costly truck roll, which can be, like John said, over $1,000, I think, per truck roll. So it can certainly be cheaper in that sense too. And then I also talked about efficiencies in terms of if you have traveling technicians and them being able to address more customer issues per trip based on the knowledge they have of other work orders and other customers that are in the area, which can make them more efficient. I mean, I think ultimately being proactive doesn't mean you're adding any additional work on. You're actually just getting it done before there is a problem or before a customer knows about a problem. So it's not necessarily an additional truck roll, an additional service. It's just getting it done before. And ultimately, I mean, there's a less tangible value there, which is probably just happier customers, and that's worth a lot too. Probably more than all these other things I just said. Customer loyalty, and you obviously offering something that your competitors can't. So, I mean, I think if you kind of ran a really detailed spreadsheet model on proactive versus reactive, you'd probably come out with some pretty good results for proactive service.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. So we have come to the conclusion of today's webinar. I would like to take this time to thank Jeremy and John for a very interesting and insightful presentation today. Shared a lot of great data. And any questions that didn't come in, that we didn't get to today, we will be sure to follow up with you via email. And one quick reminder to everyone that a link to today's recording and the PDF of the presentation will be sent out in the next 24 hours via email. Thank you, everyone, for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today, and we look forward to having you at our next TSIA webinar sponsored by ServiceMax.